So now I'm just going to start making the palette knife petals on the cake. So I have the green buttercream here. I just set up the cake here so you could just have a better view of what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm just going to start picking up the petals and sweep it. Okay, what I'm going to do, so what I've done here, basically lifted the cake up, so as I'm going to do the petals at the bottom of the cake, it will just help me to sweep. If it is just on the cake board, then it could be difficult. So I just shifted the cake, and that is a cake pan. I've placed the cake on top of the cake pan, right? So I'm just going to start doing. So here I have the buttercream, okay, and whatever I've done on the board, I'm just going to start doing it here. So press, then pull down. Okay, just to understand how much pressure is needed. Okay, so that will be one petal. Just going to add a little bit of water, just dipping the palette knife in water. So in case the buttercream just gets a little too stiff, then what you could do is just have a bowl of water, dip the palette knife in water, and then just mix it up, and so your buttercream will just get soft, after which just sweep it left and right. Okay, so I'm just going to go, I'm going to get this a little closer. Okay, looks good. So more petal. I'm just going to keep it a bit up and down, not too even. So depending on how much I'm pressing, the shape of the petal just varies a bit. So I'm just going to continue making one full row all around, and that will mark my upper border. So it's going to be a bit even, and then I'll get back as I will start the petals on the lower level. So I've just finished one full row, and that will be the top side of the petals. Okay, and so now I'm just going to start with another row below that. Okay, so that will be the same step, picking up a bit of water, just dabbing some water with a palette knife itself, so the buttercream just softens up a bit. So each time obviously you can't just leave out the step. Now I'm just going to do a petal just below that. It could be just even below one petal, or could be overlapping between two petals. Just press it down same way. You could just vary the height, just take it a little up and take it a bit down, but we're just going to overlap. So that will how the overlaps be. And like if your hand is hitting the turntable, just make sure to just get this to the edge of the turntable, and so it will be easier for you to pull it down. So I've done with the 2 layers of the petals here. I'm just going to continue doing it till the end, and then I'll catch up when I'm here with just a few more petals before I finish this. Finished the third row as well. You can see in some of the places the petals have just touched till the bottommost, the board itself, bottom of the cake. But then obviously we did some ups and downs, right, because we didn't want it to be like properly straight. So there are a few places where you can see the cake. So I'm just going to make some really like say half petals like this one, and then cover up all the red, and then we'll be done with having all the petals at the bottom. So I think I've covered up the cake, the bottom half, with all the petals. It looks so beautiful now, and it's just basic overlapping and then putting the petals together, and then you have this beautiful output. And because I'm using the crusting buttercream, right, the American buttercream, it'll just set dry to the touch in some time. So I'm just going to get back and then show how we could just add a little tinge of gold on the edges of the petals, and that will just make it look like silk saree, making it really very grand, like the red and the green with some gold will be really beautiful. And in the meantime, what I'm going to do, transfer this back into the cake board, and then I'll get back when I'm going to do the gold dusting on this cake. So I just have this gold luster dust, okay. So that's how it's going to look. I'm going to do dry dusting, so that's a simple paint brush. I'm going to touch some gold. You could just take a bit of it and then keep it on a paint palette and then do that as well, very gently, like a feather touch. I'm not going to do all around on the petals, just on some of the edge for a few petals on the left and few on the right, and for a few just on the top. So it's like a random gold touch. So it's like the buttercream is quite dried. So I'm just touching upon everything, like some last finishes. I've done adding gold to all the petals, some are random, and then on the edge we just focus to add on the edge, so it just kind of pops out, and in some there is a bit inside and then on the edge again. So obviously if it is on the edge, then you will have the 3D effect of it popping up, otherwise it's just getting hidden. Say this petal doesn't have on the edge, and so we're just going to include on the edge, and so then it starts popping out. Okay, so I'm just going to clean this up, the board which is having quite a bit of gold, and then we're just done with making the buttercream, the palette knife with green and a hint of gold. So here we have the completed buttercream cake, the palette petals on it, and decorated with some hint of gold, and it looks like really very grand looking cake, right? So what we actually did on this cake, we did the sharp edges of the buttercream cake, right? And you also learned how to do the pitch red color at the time we added, and then you can look at the color how it is now, that extremely beautiful red colored buttercream. We used to do sharp edges using board to board. after layering the cake in an acrylic ring, right? And after which we just smoothened out the top after removing the top board, and we had the sharp edges on the cake, and we did some practice on the palette knife with different sizes of the palette knives, and the one that I used here to make them on the sides. Now as you're doing these kind of work on the sides, you need to lift it up and then place it on a pan which is smaller in diameter than the diameter of the cake, and you need to keep pushing it towards the edge of the turntable, and obviously your turntable should, and then as you work on petals on the sides of the cake, and we finish that with a dab of gold all around on the palette knife petals. And here we are at the end of this lesson. So you guys will be doing the same thing, unless otherwise I'm going to give you any other variation to try. We'll just be making the buttercream cake with the palette knife petals. If there's any variation, then I'll let you know when we are just going to interact during the course. So I'll see you in the next lesson.